So the scroll of Esther, also known as the Book of Esther in the Bible, is a captivating tale of courage, cunning, and divine intervention set in ancient Persia. It follows the story of Esther, a Jewish orphan raised by her cousin Mordecai, who becomes queen to King Xerxes. Sorry. Please correct me if I'm wrong. He's also known as Ahasuerus, after a beauty contest, revealing her identity and pleading her people's salvation. Yes, with Mordecai's guidance and the king's eventual favor, Esther orchestrates a reversal of fortunes, leading to the downfall of Haman and the salvation of the Jewish people. The scroll of Esther celebrates the triumph of faith, bravery, and providence of God in the face of adversity. So tonight, at our Purim online event right now, we are embodying the spirit scribed in the scroll of Esther. Just as it is written, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another and gifts to the poor. We're coming together to experience that transformation firsthand. Through our virtual gathering right now, we are sharing the joyous festivities of Purim, connecting one with another and embracing Purim traditions. Now, I am very, very honored to invite my good friend, Mr. Mordy Miller, the founder of Shalom Point Singapore, a center of Hebrew and Jewish studies, currently in his final year of doctoral studies in Jewish studies at Ben Gurion University, married to Tal and father to Ori and Daniel. Mordy was born in an Orthodox Jewish family in Jerusalem and lived there all his life until he moved to Singapore 2 years ago. Mordy is also involved in interfaith activities and is a member of the Jewish community in Singapore. Put your hands together. Let's welcome Mr. Mordy Miller.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Karine. Thank you all for joining. Let me share the screen that we can, okay, just please let me know that you hear me well and that you see the presentation. Can you put your thumbs up? Just that I can know everything is in order, everything is okay. So Purim Sameach, Chag Purim Sameach, Happy Purim, everybody. So this is, I'm really, really excited, and please, we're just beginning. If you have any other family, friends who you think might want to join us now, please, you can feel free to send them the link, and we will admit them as we speak. There is enough room for everybody. I think that's what's good about this online form, right? That anyone, anywhere can join us. So let's begin with my Purim, my Jewish Purim experience. So we, the Jews, take unseriousness seriously. That is the fact that everything can turn upside down in an instant. And we have no more successful example of this matter than the story of Purim. Throughout the years when Jews were persecuted and oppressed, they always found solace in the story of Purim. And they knew that even if they couldn't see God, and please note that in the Megillah, in the scroll, in the book of Esther, God's name is not mentioned even once. God is always there, always watching and capable of turning everything around. The gallows prepared for Mordecai, by the way, my name Mordy is a nickname for Mordecai, that's my full name, so I'm really connected to Purim. So they turned into the gallows of Haman, the Jewish downfall turned into their victory. So here I'm sharing some photos. This is a photo my wife Tal took one Purim in Jerusalem. Is it a dog or a lion? You decide. There's something slightly confusing for a child in an Orthodox Jewish life on the holiday of Purim. After all, the rest of the year is so serious. Passover, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, Tabernacles. Many hours are spent in the synagogue praying, wearing festive clothing, eating together, studying Torah, singing. And suddenly on Purim, all those serious people become different individuals. And that's exactly the magic of Purim. On Purim, everything is reversed. The serious become funny, amusing, easygoing, and the funny becomes serious. To express the reversals, a rule is established, and this has to do with one of the songs we're going to learn later, according to which one must drink wine. It can be actually not only wine, but alcohol on Purim until one forgets how much they even drank. And because everything is turned upside down, even Purim itself becomes twisted, and it's no longer clear who is Mordechai and who is Aman. Of course, there's something, by the way, in the photo here, this is me. Me and my wife, we went on one rainy Purim. Sometimes Purim can get very rainy in Israel. To the Western Wall, and I was dressed up in a costume, obviously. This actually won an award in a contest in Israel, so I thought it would be nice. So there's something very profound here. First, there's the saying that wine enters, secret emerge. Nichnas yain yatsa sod, meaning that when someone drinks, deep and hidden things can be revealed. So sometimes these are not such pleasant things, but hopefully many times it leads to a great closeness between people. And Purim is a holiday of closeness between people. The Jewish people, or people who celebrate Purim, gather. It's also a holiday where they receive the Torah anew. We no longer take our choices for granted. Sometimes the change, the upside down, isn't about changing our choices, but only our perspective. We receive the Torah again, but now we accept it willingly. And obviously, there's also the notion of realizing that appearance, what we see on the surface, is not everything. In fact, it can be the total opposite. Sometimes we know this about people, about books, about events, about thoughts. They seem to be at first negative, and then they turn out to be positive. Sometimes the secret is to do this Purim, this Purim act. The Purim act is turning things upside down, reversing things, looking at them from another angle. We say in Hebrew, "V'nahafoch hu." We turn it around. We turn it around. V'nahafoch. There's another song. We won't learn it today. If you remember, please email me. I'll send it to you. It's a beautiful song. So when nothing works, sometimes you just need to turn it around. Now, when we know we were in danger and others wanted to harm us, it causes us to want to help the weak and poor in the population. So that's why, therefore, Purim is a holiday where much charity is given. This is actually a law. It's a halacha. It's not only a custom. We are actually expected to give out charity. And there's this law says anyone who asks for charity, you don't turn anyone down. So even if it's a small amount, and then you see people around in Purim asking, can you please help us? And yes, the answer should always be yes. Here you see some of the money with some of the traditional. At first, we were supposed to meet in person and have some of these delicious Purim pastries. But unfortunately, no. Again, you can always contact me and we'll find a way to get you some of these pastries. So here I just want to give some more examples. This is another custom in Purim, sending food parcels. So we send out, you see, these are baskets with food and we send them out. We give them out to our neighbors, to our friends, and many times to people that are totally foreign. We don't know, total strangers, complete strangers, just in the street. Please just accept this, mishloach manot. So yes, allow me to take you with me for a moment to Jerusalem of the 90s. Now, obviously, this is not Jerusalem of the 90s. This is Jerusalem from just a few years ago. I don't have here in Singapore my childhood photos, but I do have my children's photos. So maybe through that, we can get a bit of the feeling of Purim. So these are just a few every year. This is me, my wife, my kids, Daniel and Ori, Daniel Tzvi and Ori Esther. Ori's second name is Esther, so we have a Mordechai and Esther. My sister's name is Esther. My mother-in-law is Esther. So every year I have a different costume. Not only me, everybody. Can be a soldier, a policeman, a clown, some kind of animal. There's some creative people who just, the sky, the limits. And every year, days before Purim, my house used to fill up with candies, wine, and food in preparation for the custom of sending food parcels. Here's some more photos. The left one is actually already from Singapore, but the right photo, the Superman family, is still Jerusalem. So when Purim night arrives, everyone goes to the synagogue in costumes, of course. We used to sit next to the Friedman family at the Dutch synagogue in Jerusalem. Every time the leader of the Megillah, right, the person who reads the scroll, the book of Esther, said the word Haman, everyone would make noise and stomp their feet on the floor or make noise in other ways. It was a very fun and joyous experience. There were those who made noise in a very amusing way with pots or funny sounding trumpets. During the reading of the Megillah, and here you see a photo reading these are just children who are listening to the reading of the Megillah, holding a Megillah of their own. It is forbidden to talk, right? We're not allowed to speak during the reading of Megillah. And one must listen carefully to every word. And guess what? The story every year is truly interesting and fascinating and gripping, although we've already read it so many times. What will the Jews do? What will Esther do? What will Achashverosh do? Here's another photo. This has nothing to do with my family. This is an online photo. But again, this is typical. It's a typical families coming together, all dressed up, all reading from the Megillah together. But the real fun begins the next day, at the morning of Purim, dressing up again, listening to the Megillah again in synagogue, and then throughout the day, being in the streets with friends and family, passing between neighbors' apartments. All the houses are open, there is food everywhere, and the adults drink and hug and sing and dance. People dance in the middle of the street, in the stairwell, at the bus stop, everywhere. Everyone is Purim. Everywhere is Purim. Everything is Purim. And the Purim song, so joyful and meaningful, people who are shy all year round, you never hear them, you never notice them. And now, with the masks, behind the masks and the costumes, they become who they truly want to be and can be. At the lunch table, in the afternoon, deep and wonderful Torah thoughts are said. Here you can see on the right photo, that's actually me with the feathers with one of my rabbis. So I came and visited him only a few minutes, 5-10 minutes. He's probably drunk at this at this moment already. And just people come in and out, bringing food, singing, talking, drinking. On the left is just another online photo of a well-known rabbi with his followers gathering. And every few minutes, neighbors join in, bring food parcels, dance. At some point, my father used to collapse on the couch and fall asleep. I think he might be even here with us listening. So hi, Abba. Until the next day, right? I think that the two prayers that the least Jews pray are the evening prayer when Purim ends, because people are just, they fall asleep, and the morning prayer of Shavuot after staying awake all night. Well, something needs to be explained. Drinking and dancing can be very holy. Everything is done gently and beautifully. And for the sake of God, there is no barbarism, aggression in all of this. Don't be mistaken. In yeshiva, kind of a academy, a religious academy, a Jewish religious academy, I studied at. The joy of Purim reached new heights. Students danced together, drank, discovered how deep is the connection between them, talked with the rabbis about deep things they wouldn't dare to talk about during the year. And of course, there are some that are really drunk, some that are half drunk, a quarter drunk, but they all join the celebration. And in the chaos, they reveal what's on their hearts. Now, Dad and I used to travel on Purim regularly to give food parcels to several rabbis, friends, family, neighbors we were very connected to. Each such visit was extraordinary. A warm embrace, drinking, eating something, studying Torah, and back home. Now, later on in life, and I became a bit less observant. The holiday was mainly about dressing up, enjoying other people's costumes, but something was missing. In the warmth, in the dedication to the Torah, and to the essence of the holiday. I don't think I've ever managed to re-experience the true joy of Purim as I had in childhood and in my early years in yeshiva. In a way, my whole life is an attempt to return to the Purim of childhood, to forget all worries and to enjoy God's presence and friend and family. In the book of Esther, there is a very interesting thing. There's obviously the main plot, as Karine beautifully explained. We have Haman, Mordechai, Achashverosh, Esther. These are all main characters. These are all heroes. But there's one chapter that if we remove that chapter, we take it out of the scroll, the story would still remain complete. This is chapter 6. It's the story of the king Achashverosh, who couldn't sleep at night. And we in Judaism hear the king, and what do we hear? We think of God. Who is the king of the world? The King of Kings. And at night, meaning during the darkness, when it seems that there was no hope for the Jews, God, as it says in Psalms, indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. Hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Israel. The turning point from that place begins. But you know, Haman is still Haman, and the decree of destruction on the Jews still exists, even though Mordechai rides, you all know the story, on the horseback through the cities of Paras, right, of Persia, today's Iran. Whoever reveals to Haman that it's not just a minor moment, a coincidence, an annoying coincidence, but a sign for things to come, was specifically his wife Zeresh. She informs him, and I'm quoting from the Megillah, If Mordecai, before whom you have begun to fall, is of Jewish descent, you will not prevail against him, but will surely fall before him. End of quote. Sometimes God sends a small sign, a single drop of rain, so that we don't lose hope, so that we know that soon enough the heavens will open and rain and abundance, blessings will pour down. Sometimes something is about to change for the better. So, as I said, and soon we'll listen together to chapter 6 in just a moment. Chapter 6 is that moment. Short, seemingly insignificant, but I believe everything is there. Everything ultimately returns to chapter 6. It's the chapter of revolution, when the king remembers history. Yeah, you see in one of these beautiful pieces of art, he's looking at the book of history, meaning he's remembering the merit of the fathers, the patriarchs, the covenant that God has with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, now Karin. Please, if you can read us chapter 6 in English, this will take probably about 3 minutes, and then I will read chapter 6 in Hebrew as it's recited in synagogue. That will be another 3 to 4 minutes. So please stay with us, and then later we have more in the program. I can't wait to hear Jasmine right after me. So Karin, please.
Okay, I'm back. Hi. All right. That night the king could not sleep, so he ordered the book of the Chronicles, the record of his reign, to be brought in and read to him. It was found recorded there that Mordecai had exposed Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's officers who guarded the doorway, who had conspired to assassinate King Xerxes. What honor and recognition has Mordecai received for this? The king asked. Nothing has been done for him, his attendants answered. The king said, who is in the court? Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the palace to speak to the king about impaling Mordecai on the pole he has set up for him. His attendant answered, Haman is standing in the court. Bring him in, the king ordered. When Haman entered, the king asked him, what should be done for the man the king delights to honor? Next page, we have Haman thought to himself, who is there that the king would rather honor than me? So he answered the king, for the man the king delights to honor, have them bring a royal robe to the king has worn, and a horse the king has ridden, one with royal crest placed on his head. Then let the robe and the horse be entrusted to one of the king's most noble princes. Let them robe the man the king delights to honor, and lead him onto the horse through the city streets, proclaiming before him, this is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. Go at once, the king commanded Haman. Get the robe and the horse, and do just as you have suggested for Mordecai the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Do not neglect anything you recommended. So Haman got the robe and the horse. He robbed Mordecai and led him on his horseback through the city streets, proclaiming before him, this is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. Afterward, Mordecai returned to the king's gate, but Haman rushed home with his head covered in grief, told Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends everything that had happened to him. His advisors and his wife Zeresh said to him, since Mordecai, before whom your downfall has started, is is of Jewish origin, you cannot stand against him. You will surely come to ruin. While they were still talking to him, the king's eunuch arrived and hurried Haman away to banquet Esther had prepared.
Thank you, Corinne.
You're most welcome. Back
Now
to you.
we will read, as we read in the synagogue, as we recite the synagogue, the 6th chapter in Hebrew. Assuming most of you cannot read Hebrew, you can just listen. This will take 3 minutes, and then we will all hear Jasmine. בלילה הוא נדדה שנת המלך, ויאמר להביא את ספר הזיכרונות דברי הימים, ויהיו נקראים לפני המלך, וימצא כתוב אשר הגיד מרדכי על בגתנה ותרש, שני סריסי המלך משומרי הסף, אשר ביקשו לשלוח יד במלך אחשוורוש, ויאמר המלך מה נעשה יקר וגדולה למרדכי על זה, ויאמרו נערי המלך משרתיו לא נעשה עמו דבר. ויאמר המלך מי בחצר, והמן בא לחצר בית המלך החיצונה, לאמור למלך לתלות את מרדכי על העץ אשר הכין לו. ויאמרו נערי המלך אליו הנה המן עומד בחצר. ויאמר המלך יבוא, ויבוא המן, ויאמר לו המלך מה לעשות באיש אשר המלך חפץ ביקרו. ויאמר המן בליבו למי יחפוץ המלך לעשות יקר יותר ממני. ויאמר המן אל המלך איש אשר המלך חפץ ביקרו יביאו לבוש מלכות אשר לבש בו המלך וסוש אשר רכב עליו המלך, אשר ניתן כתר מלכות בראשו, ונתון הלבוש והסוס על יד איש משרי המלך הפרטמים, והלבישו את האיש אשר המלך חפץ ביקרו, והרכבו על הסוס ברחוב העיר, וקראו לפניו ככה יעשה לאיש אשר המלך חפץ ביקרו. ויאמר המלך להמן מהר קח את הלבוש ואת הסוס כאשר דיברת, ועשה כן למרדכי היהודי היושב בשער המלך, אל תפל דבר מכל אשר דיברת. ויקח המן את הלבוש ואת הסוס, וילבש את מרדכי, וירכבהו ברחוב העיר, ויקרא לפניו ככה יעשה לאיש אשר המלך חפץ ביקרו. וישב מרדכי על שער המלך, והמן נדחף אל ביתו, אבל וחפוי ראש. ויספר המן לזרש אשתו ולכל אוהביו את כל אשר קראו, ויאמרו לא חכמיו וזרש אשתו היא מזרע היהודים מרדכי אשר הכילות לנפול לפניו לא תוכל לו, כי נפול תיפול לפניו. עודם מדברים עמו, וסריסי המלך הגיעו, ויבהילו להביא את המן אל המשתה אשר עשתה אסתר. So, thank you very much. And Corinne, I'm returning the microphone to you.
Hi, I'm back. All right, so guys, again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat. We'll go through them together later. Next up, we have Jasmine. So allow me to introduce Jasmine Kolano, a second-year PhD candidate in international relations. She hosts her own podcast called Joy and Olives. Interestingly, she studied abroad in Jerusalem in 2016, residing just a 20-minute walk away from the city of David, an archaeological site featuring remnants of the old city wall believed to have been built by Nehemiah, possibly a contemporary of Esther from the Bible. Despite this proximity, Jasmine has never formally celebrated Purim until now, making this her inaugural experience. She extends her heartfelt thanks to Mordy for the opportunity to be present and wishes to discuss the significance of Esther's narrative to her faith as an evangelical Christian. Jasmine, I pass the mic to you.
Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to be here with all of you today. And I believe I'm already a host, so I'll begin by sharing a quick presentation. Okay, give me 1 minute as I set it up. Okay, great. And start from here. By the way, Mordy, I think it's so hilarious. I didn't know that according to Jewish tradition, you're supposed to have, if you have a Mordechai, you're supposed to have an Esther in the family. My mom's name is actually Esther, but we don't have a Mordechai in our family. So who knows, maybe I'll have to, have a child and name him Mordy after you. But anyways.
For us, it's just a coincidence.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I'm so thankful, Mordy, that you shared with us about how Jewish people, especially in Israel, how they practically celebrate the holiday, because I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a Christian, and I believe some of my friends in this Zoom meeting, they're Christians as well. And to be honest, a lot of those traditional ways of celebration are lost in the Christian tradition. We focus a lot more on the text. We focus a lot more on what the text means to us in our day-to-day lives. And so I'm going to actually be going about sharing that in the next few minutes. But I want to thank you for reminding me about how important it is to celebrate and to be joyful, and to take God's word not only as a theological lesson, but how can I live it out, and how can I live my life with more joy? And so again, I have a podcast called Joy and Olives, and I'm always grateful for people who remind me to live a life of greater joy. But anyways, I wanted to bring us to a very important verse in the book of Esther from chapter 3, verse 14. And this is actually what Mordechai says to Esther as Esther is contemplating whether or not she should approach her husband, the king, and ask him to save her people. Esther was feeling a lot of self-doubt, and she didn't know if she should make that big move or not. And her cousin Mordechai tells her this. He says, "Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" I used to work for an organization here in Singapore, and my boss is a Christian. And I believe one of my coworkers from that previous organization is with me right now, so she'll know what I'm talking about. Well, this boss would always come up to me and remind me, "Jasmine, you were called for such a time as this." And she didn't do that just to me. She would do that to everyone in the department. She would always remind us that, hey, you're not here working for this company by chance. You're here on purpose. And because we were a Christian company, she would remind us that God had a purpose for us being there. And if God had a purpose for us being there, we should endeavor to know what that purpose was. So that links to a very big question that I've always had ever since I was a little girl. And that question is, what is my purpose? And, I put my name down there, but I believe that all of us here could replace my name and put your own name there, because this is one of the primary questions that everyone asks themselves at so many stages in life. I think you can be 25, and be in your dream career and yet still ask yourself, what is my purpose? You could be 65, be a grandparent, have grandchildren, be retired, and then also ask yourself the same question. What is my purpose? Why am I here? Okay, but before we get into that, I wanted to take a quick break and sort of give everyone a pop quiz just to make sure everyone's awake. And, you know, tonight is the second or the third to last night of Taylor Swift's concerts here at the National Stadium in Singapore. And all of you guys chose to be here instead. So very grateful. But I have a quick question to pose to the audience, and feel free to put your answers in the chat. What does Taylor Swift, the Book of Esther, and the Great Pyramid have in common? And I'm going to actually go back to that slide so that you can, you know, take a few moments to ponder the question. What do these three seemingly different people, places, what do you think they have in common? And please, there's no such thing as a wrong answer. Feel free to put your thoughts in the chats. And I will be taking a quick look in the chats to see if anyone has any creative answers. And Mordy, if you have an answer, if you have an inkling, let me know too. All right, Joseph says they're all famous. Okay, yeah, that's a great answer. Not what I was looking for though, but yes, you're on the right track. Anyone else braver than Joseph? They're all rich. Yes, that is also true. I'm looking for something a little bit more different though. Any thoughts? Okay, Sherilyn says, they were all made for such a time as this. Wow, I love that you used and incorporated scripture, Sherilyn. Not the answer I was looking for either, but I think that was a great answer as well. Any last answer? Let's wait for one more response. Christine says, they are all supported by hidden structures. Okay, Sherilyn, again, they are all royalty. Fascinating. I love everyone's responses. And Christine touched on something that is probably closest to what I want to talk about today. But before I actually reveal the answer, I wanted to share a little bit of Hebrew, and I am no Hebrew scholar. So after the session is over, if you have more Hebrew related questions, Mordy is your man. He can not only read Hebrew, but as you saw, he can sing in Hebrew. I'm not even going to go there, but I wanted to bring our attention to the way that Esther is written in the Hebrew language. And you will see that the arrow is pointing from right to left, and that's because the Hebrew language is read from right to left, much like ancient Chinese. Now, Esther, the name is not a Hebrew name. Her original Hebrew name was Hadassah. Esther was the Persian name that was given to her once she became the queen of Persia. But what's fascinating about the name is that within the name Esther is the Hebrew word seter. Again, I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. But what's interesting is that seter means secret. And for those of you who are people who enjoy reading the Bible, if you read Psalm 91, the very first verse, you will find the word seter in that verse, because it says that he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Now, the very first letter of Esther's name is, the very first letter is Aleph. And Aleph is the very first letter of the word Elohim. And Elohim is the Hebrew word for God. And so what's fascinating about Esther's name is that it almost is hinting that our God, Elohim, is someone who likes to do things in secret. And perhaps he also likes to keep himself concealed. Now, I know that some of you already know this, because our pastor has talked about this, that in the book of Esther, God is not mentioned, not even once. And the Hebrew word for Lord is also never mentioned once. Yet, as Mordy mentioned, we see that God is actively at work in the lives of Mordecai, of Esther, and in the Jewish people. Now, I love this verse from the book of Proverbs, written by King Solomon. It says, "It is the glory of God to conceal a matter, and the glory of kings to search it out." And one of the reasons why I enjoy being a Christian so much, and I believe that this theme runs true in the Jewish faith, is that the Bible, which I have right here, is full of secrets. And God tasked people to write his word because he wanted to hide pictures of himself. He wanted to hide pictures of his character. But not only that, he wanted to hide lessons and important ways for us as people to discover the mystery of our purpose on this planet. Now, I love this picture. And again, it's a stock image. I apologize. But it's a picture of a father playing hide and seek with his child. And, I think when people think about God being secretive or concealing himself, they almost feel that that's very cruel, right? I mean, if God has all the answers, why would he deliberately hide himself? Why doesn't he just show up? Especially when we're going through a hard time. And when I look at the story of Esther, her people were going through a very, very difficult time. Why didn't God just appear? Why didn't he just give a very straightforward plan to Esther, to Mordecai? Why was there so much secrecy involved? Well, I personally believe, and this is taught in our Christian faith, that Jesus came to reveal God as a good father. As a good father, he's not just serious all the time, but he's playful. And I really like how Mordecai showed us physical demonstrations and examples of how the Jewish people who take their religion incredibly seriously, but on the day of Purim, in the celebration of Purim, they're having fun, and they realize that God is also someone who enjoys seeing his people happy, and he enjoys bringing us on a journey of discovery. So the title of my talk today is, "These are the 3 ways that God reveals the secrets of his purpose for your life through the story of Esther that's contrary to conventional wisdom." Being someone who was born and raised in the United States, I don't know if this is an American cliche, but I was always told growing up that I should always follow my heart. It seemed that I got that advice, especially from pop culture. Oh, you don't know which guy to date? Well, just follow your heart. Oh, you really don't know what career path to go on? Just follow your heart. Believe in yourself. But can I just be very honest with you? That has not worked for me. And I have also not seen it explicitly said in the Bible to follow your heart. So what does the Bible say? And what does this have to say about what we should do when we're between a rock and a hard place, and we don't know what to do? We don't know our purpose. We're confused. Well, these 3 icons are hints of what's to come. So join me now as we take a look at 2 characters in the book of Esther that Mordy has already touched upon. We have the beautiful Esther on the right, and we also have the insidious Haman on the left. Now, both of them and their life trajectory is worth us contemplating about. I know that the book of Esther, the spotlight is heavily on Esther and Mordecai, but bear with me in the next few minutes, as I really felt that Haman's story is really worth examining. And I'm so glad that Mordy chose chapter 6. I didn't know that he was going to do that until very last minute, but it's a perfect segue into the life of this character. Now, what makes a story amazing and what makes it so memorable is when we can resonate with not just the protagonist of the story, but we can also resonate with the antagonist. Now, I know Haman is always derided as this evil, incredibly self-centered person. But can I be honest that I had myself saw parts of me, not only in the life of Esther, but also in the life of Haman. Both of them are incredible contrasts. And both of them actually share a fair amount of similarity. Now, I encourage everyone to read the book of Esther for yourself. But what's interesting is that both of them are placed in a position of influence and leadership. Esther is promoted to be queen, and Haman is promoted to be, in a sense, prince of all of Persia. But both of them make very, very different decisions with their influence. Now, Haman, okay, even though he's been given this incredible opportunity to do good with his position, he makes three very poor choices in his life, indicated by those three icons. First of all, as we recall from the very last portion of chapter 6, Haman's closest friends are his advisors, and it seems like his wife, right? He's always talking to them, but unfortunately, his wife doesn't give him very good advice. So yes, we see in chapter 6 that his wife tells him that, if you try to do anything evil to the Jewish people, evil will fall upon you. But if you look just a few chapters before that, that's not what she tells Haman. She actually convinces her husband to construct gallows and to ask the king to hang Mordecai on them. So when I was reading the story, I thought, wow, his wife is giving him incredibly inconsistent advice here. Second thing, when Haman is pouring out, all of his sorrow about feeling that, his power was being usurped to his closest advisors, they don't give him good advice. They don't even tell the truth. They instead encourage Haman to be even more self-centered. So the first mistake that Haman makes is that he surrounds himself with really bad company. His friends and his wife are giving him inconsistent advice, and they don't seem to have his best interests at heart. Number 2, Haman is always seems to be consulting. If it's not his family or his friends, it's himself. If you go ahead and look back at chapter 6, when Haman is brought in by the king and the king asks him, what should I do for the man that I wish to honor? Haman doesn't say, oh, well, let me go and let me consult people. But he uses his own rationale. He says, well, I think the king wants to honor me. So I'm going to tell him, to do X, Y, Z, thinking it would be done for himself and not realizing that it was going to be done for Mordecai. So here's one of life's biggest challenges, right? A lot of times we don't want to seek other people's opinions, and we most certainly don't want to go to God's word. If I'm going to be very, very honest, when I'm going through difficult decisions in life, I want to rush and make a decision. I don't actually want to consult the Bible, because what can a book that's thousands of years old have to speak to me and my situation? But that's when we're incredibly wrong, because if we look at King Ahasuerus in this story, yes, he's not consulting the Bible, but he's looking at the book of Chronicles. And that's what causes him to realize that I've made a mistake. I need to honor this man, Mordecai, who saved my life. And if we're not looking at God's word, if we're not looking at the advice that's passed down to us from incredibly wise people, we're not making room to receive wisdom, we're going to end up making a lot of decisions based off of our own instinct and our own limited knowledge that will end up limiting us from knowing what God's purpose for our plan is. Now, finally, the last icon on the bottom right-hand corner is the picture of an empty chair. And the reason I chose that is that Haman lacked solitude in his life. You know, when we come to making very important decisions, especially when it concerns the lives of other people, we really need to take a step back, spend time away from all the static noise around us, whether it's from social media, whether it's from our friends, our family. And we need to say, okay, I've heard all this advice. Now I need to weigh my options and I need to make a decision that I can be proud of. But we don't see Haman doing that at all. He's either showing off his wealth, he's either talking about himself, and he's never really taking the time to contemplate, to meditate. But on the other hand, we look at the life of Queen Esther. Now, Queen Esther was filled with self-doubt. She didn't know if she was making the right decision. She didn't know her purpose as queen, but she surrounded herself not only with her cousin Mordecai's advice, but if you take a look through the whole book of Esther, you know, she's consulting the king's eunuchs, people very close to the king. So she has a better sense of what the king is looking for. Number three, she also surrounds herself with her maids, you know, people who are working for her, people who are supporting her all the way. And that's so important. Surrounding yourself with people who really love you and people who are going to say things that you might not actually like. Because when Mordecai gave Queen Esther the advice he gave her, he was, to put it bluntly, he was not afraid to hurt Queen Esther's feelings. He was telling her, Esther, if you don't rise up now to make this very difficult decision, don't think that you can escape the harm that is coming to the Jewish people. Yeah, the king might not know you're a Jew now, but what if your identity is exposed later on? You will suffer the same fate if you don't make a stand of courage. Number two, now the book of Esther never mentions, you know, that Queen Esther is consulting the Torah or consulting the Bible. But like I mentioned just now, she consulted Mordecai. And what's very interesting about Mordecai is we know he's a man of God. And he says something very interesting, something that I will never forget. Despite all the adversity that is that he's facing, because he's realizing that in the matter of months, his people will die. He says this to Esther. He says, if you do not act now, help and salvation will come for our people from another place. And I thought that was so fascinating that Mordecai had such faith. He had such faith that God would send help, despite the fact that the Jewish people at the time were living in exile in Persia. The way that I concluded that Mordecai was definitely reading God's word is the fact that he's so sure of God's promises given to the prophets all the way up to his time, that though God had allowed for the exile of the Jewish people to Persia, they would be allowed to come back again, that God would never forget his people. And I love that Mordecai is filled with that faith, and he's imparting that to Esther, who is at the time still young and inexperienced. Now, finally is solitude. You know, before Queen Esther approaches the king, she makes a very interesting choice of deciding to fast and pray for 3 days, meaning that she would spend a lot of time alone. You know, she's not going to be at meals with her friends. She's not going to be on her social media accounts. She's going to take a step back and prepare herself and really ask herself, is this the choice that I should make? And if it is, why should I do this? And I believe that during those 3 days, she is filled with such conviction that this is why she was called to be queen. So the question I want to pose to all of you about both of these characters is, which one of them followed their instincts? From my reading of the book of Esther, I think Haman followed his instincts perfectly. You know, he instinctively felt that he had favor with the king, which he did, but he thought he could do whatever he wanted to God's people and not face repercussions for it. And he was wrong. Now, Esther, on the other hand, her instinct was to protect her own life. She didn't want to do the difficult thing to save her people, but she ends up going actually against her natural instincts of self-preservation to do what Mordecai, her cousin, convinced her was the right thing to do. And because of that, both of them have two very different endings to their story. Haman actually loses his life, and it has a negative impact on the rest of his family. Whereas Esther, not only does she rise to prominence, but all of her people are saved. And I may dare say that if she did not make the decision that she made, who knows, maybe Morty wouldn't even be here hosting this event. So the decisions that we make, especially when we're at a crossroads, it's so important not to rely simply on instinct, but like I mentioned, to go back to those three key areas. And that is God's word, that is good community, not just people who are going to say things you want to hear, but people who are going to say things that are going to challenge you in the right way. And finally, solitude. Now, I'm going to end with this verse from the New Testament, and this was written by the Apostle Paul, who actually wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. And he said this, he says, always pursue what is good, both for yourselves and for all. And I couldn't end this presentation without quoting Jesus, because he is central to our evangelical Christian faith. He says this in Mark chapter 8, verse 35, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel, and actually what the gospel means is good news, that God is good, will save it. And I want to impart this very last piece of wisdom. And I know I'm a very young person, I'm still learning myself, but before I made a very big decision to move from the United States to Singapore, I may not have had, the stakes may not have been as high as Esther's, right? I mean, I didn't have a whole nation depending on me for their survival, but I had to make a very, very tough decision that I knew would affect my family's well-being, and it would affect the rest of my life. And I know that some of you in this room are also at a crossroads. You're thinking about your career, you're thinking about your families, and that can be very stressful. So can I encourage all of you to think of Esther, to think of Mordecai, but don't feel that pressure, don't feel like, well, I need to be perfect. I need to know what God's will for my life is right now. And I think a lot of us get very stressed out by that. But just as Mordecai and Esther took it one day at a time, they didn't, while God didn't send them an email that said, okay, step 1, do this, step 2, do that. But what they did was, like I said, they went back to God's word. They went back to his promises. They knew what God had promised to the Jewish people, and they held on to that, number 1. Number 2, they surrounded themselves with good counsel. And number 3, they took time to get away, and to really hear God's voice. And that is when the mystery, the hidden secrets of God's plans and purposes for your life will be revealed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jasmine. I actually really love the segment where you reminded us to stay away from other people's thoughts and advice, and then you gotta be alone and find solitude, and then make your own decision that makes ourselves proud. I think that's a very good advice to everyone, no matter how old you are or where you are. And also like staying present, taking things one day at a time, and trusting God, trusting universe, trusting the system. I think that's very good. That's very good sharing. It's very wise. I enjoy it. All right. Next up, we have Mordy to be leading us a song teaching session. He will guide us through the learning of 2 songs. I'm going to pass the mic over to Mordy. Mordy, please take it away.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Corinne, and thank you, Jasmine. I want to remind everybody this is recorded, and I will send you all of this because I personally want to listen to Jasmine again. It was so beautiful, so profound, so thought-provoking, and I should ask you probably to be my rabbi. So we'll continue now with two songs in Hebrew, and what we'll do is I'm going to share the transliteration that you can all see. And I think what we'll do is I'll start with reading the words, then singing the words, and then we'll play the music. Obviously, having everybody here sing together probably won't be the best thing, but you can sing wherever you are now or later. And the first song is called Hayav Inish Lebesumei Ad De Lo Yada. And this is actually, well, I said Hebrew, it's Aramaic. Many observant Jews actually know Aramaic, the form of the Babylon tractate, the Talmud. Some of the Jewish writings between the 1st century to the 8th century was written in Aramaic. So this is something that almost every Jew would sing during Purim, and it means that one must drink until he does not know who is Haman, who is Mordechai. And the words here just mean that a man must drink until he does not know. Chayav, must. Inish is like Adam, like man. Lebesume is to drink. Ad, until delo yada, that he does not know. So you all have the words Chayav, Inish, Lebesume, Ad delo yada. Chayav inish li vesume, li vesume, li vesume. Chayav inish li vesume, li vesume, li vesume. Ade lo yada, ade lo yada, ade lo yada. Ade lo yada, ade lo yada, ade lo yada. Ade lo yada, ade lo yada, ade lo yada. Ade lo yada, ade lo yada, ade lo yada. Chayav inish li vesume, li vesume, li vesume. Chayav inish li vesume, li vesume, li vesume. Ade lo yada, ade lo yada, ade lo yada. Ade lo yada, ade lo yada, ade lo yada. Ade lo yada, ade lo yada, ade lo yada. Ade lo yada, ade lo yada, ade lo yada. Now let's put on the music. Tell me if you hear it. And thumbs up, do you hear it? Okay, let's listen. You can all join. Now you all know it by heart. Thank you. Go for dancing. Are you ready for the next song? Okay, so the next song is Chag Purim. Chag Purim, what is Chag Purim? The holiday of Purim. Chag in Hebrew is holiday. It has other meanings, by the way. You can ask me later. So this one is very, very popular, and this is popular especially amongst children. So, you know, if you ever see a Hebrew-speaking child, you can actually sing with him or her the song, and they will know it and they will join. חג פורים, חג פורים, חג גדול ליהודים, מסכות, רעשנים, שיר וריקודים. הבה נרישה רש רש רש, הבה נרישה רש רש רש, הבה נרישה רש 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 ברעשנים. חג פורים, זה אל זה מנות שולחים. מחמדים, ממתקים, מותק מגדנות, הבה נרישה רש רש רש, הבה נרישה רש רש רש, הבה נרישה רש 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 ברעשנים. So the meaning is, Chag Purim, the holiday of Purim, is a big day for the Jews, and some people say instead of Yehudim, LaYeladim, to the children, a big holiday for the children, Chag Gadol LaYeladim. We have masks, we have, you see the Ra'ashan is what's on the top. The picture, it's, I think, how is it called? I forgot the English word for a ra'ashan, this thing that makes noise. Anyone can help me out here. The grogger, I think, right? A grogger. And then we say, let's make noise. Rash, rash, rash. It's the noise. Rash, it's not a word. It's a noise. Rash, rash, rash. Let's make noise. Hava narisha. Last time, and then we'll listen to the song. חג פורים, חג גדול ליהודים, מסכות, רעשנים, שיר וריקודים. הבה נרישה רש רש רש, הבה נרישה רש רש רש, הבה נרישה רש 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 ברעשנים. חג פורים, זה לזה שולחים מנות, מחמדים, ממתקים, מותק מגדנות. הבה נרישה רש רש רש, הבה נרישה רש רש רש, הבה נרישה רש 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 ברעשנים. And now let's all listen to the song. Take 1 second. You all hear it? Okay, so thank you very much. I'll also send you the songs, the transliteration, the Spotify or YouTube links. And Karine, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. So now is our time for Q&A. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to hop off mute. Go ahead and ask Mordy or Jasmine. I actually would like to start first since earlier you mentioned Chag Purim, there's another meaning to the word Chag. what does the word mean, Mordy? Thank you.
Thank you. So Chag also has to do with circle, with circling. When someone surrounds himself with a circle, so that means someone is doing a Chag. So that's the other meaning.
Like in a group or like by a
Well,
hand?
yeah. Well, actually, another word in Hebrew for celebration would be chagiga. It comes from the word chag, right? CHG or chet gimel, chag, is holiday, but it's also celebrating, celebration. It has to do with also dancing, being in a circle. So yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any takers? Any questions? Feel free to hop off mute. Anyone?
Hello. Yes, I would like to ask
Hi.
Jasmine. So what is the similarity between Taylor Swift, Esther, and the pyramid?
Hi, TJC. You know, it's so funny. My mom is listening was listening to the presentation in the background. And she's like, you totally forgot to mention the answer. So thank you for asking that. So what's very, very interesting about how the three are in common? Well, first of all, Taylor Swift hides codes in her songs. I don't know if any of you know that, but one of the reasons, oh, cannot hear. Hold on. One
We
moment.
can actually hear you, so maybe there's a specific problem.
Okay, let me, so Mordy,
Yeah,
you're hearing me
I can
okay?
hear you.
Okay, let me just send a quick message. Okay, I will just share it again with you later, but I'll share it for the benefit of the rest of the group tonight. So yeah, so part of the reason why Taylor Swift has been hailed as an amazing songwriter, and again, I'm not saying she is or she isn't, but she does hide codes in her songs, and if you're a big fan, you'll start to know what those codes are and what she's alluding to. So that's number one. And the Great Pyramids are also known to have many hidden secret tunnels that lead to secret rooms that even archaeologists have not been able to discover yet. And the book of Esther, and again, Mordy, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I've actually heard that what's fascinating is that even though God's name does not appear in the book of Esther, but there are 4 specific instances in the book of Esther where his name, his most sacred name, is hidden as an acrostic 4 different times. So it's and the acrostic is sometimes read forwards or it can be read backwards. So that's just a little fun fact that got me really excited about the book of Esther. And it goes back to the point I made about how God, yes, he hides himself, but he also gives a lot of clues because he wants us to be able to find and discover them.
Thank you so much for
I
sharing.
have a question.
Yeah.
Jasmine, is there any Christian practices related to Purim at all? Or like, is there any that any Christians ever celebrate somehow the holiday?
I'm gonna actually open it up to any other person in this room who's a Christian because there are so many different Christian denominations. Personally, I will be honest, no. And I think that's so sad. We don't tend to celebrate Purim, but we do read the story. And you know, I asked my mom as a child, oh, some of you may know this, in Singapore, many people who convert to Christianity will get baptized and will take on a Christian name for themselves. The Christian name will typically be an English name that's from the Bible, but it doesn't have to be. So my mom, when she was baptized, she had to choose a Christian name. And she chose the name Esther. And I asked my mom, well, like, why Esther? Why not, you know, I don't know, Ruth? And she said, well, because I even at the time, even as a very young Christian, I knew that Esther was the story of a very beautiful queen. So I think that most Christians have a rudimentary knowledge, at least of the story, but how we actually celebrate it, there aren't any practices.
Thank you.
Can I cut in? Hi, can everyone hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay, super. Hi, I'm Cabria. Nice to meet you all. Actually, in some Eastern European churches, we use the ratchet. Like in the Ukrainian community, we have, it's called a rapach, but like the bigger version is a derkach. And it's used in other places too, like the Proshovo region of Slovakia, because there's like, we have these indigenous groups, which like my family is like Ukrainian and a part of the indigenous groups. They're from the Carpathian Mountains. And they're the Ruthenians is how they used to be known, and they kind of got agglomerated and then a subset of ethnics. It's complicated, but basically we use it, and some other places they call it a crotalum, but we use it instead of bells during Pashal Tridom, and we use it 3 days before Easter. And actually, it's funny because we sing a lot of the songs that are Hebrew songs, but we've translated them, but they've kept the same beat and tune. So when I was listening to some of the songs like Mordy's playing, I was like, I swear I know this song. I've heard it before. My mom has played this song for me. Mind you, like my dad's sister, she married into a Jewish family. So like that's also part of it, why it sounded familiar probably. But yeah, we do have certain customs that are replicated from, and I feel like it's adaptation because Ukraine has like obviously a lot of different ethnic groups that live there. And so being a part of the diaspora, it kind of like, I guess, leaks into North America, like Canada, the US, because everyone like kind of immigrates together during certain like time periods, you know, during wars and stuff. So we do have something similar at that time. And I know my mom, like we'll follow certain practices that you would think like those are Jewish practices, like for Passover and stuff, eating like specific types of bread, you know, like the Jewish flatbread. That's like my family eats that. So that's why I'm like, oh, there's a lot of different crossovers, a lot of similarities in some respects. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Next up, does anyone else have any more questions? Otherwise, we may end a little bit earlier than expected.
Hi, Mordy.
Hi,
Oh, so sorry. Am I cutting into someone? Okay. Mordy, I have a quick question about the Aramaic. I think it's interesting because as Christians, we know that Jesus most likely spoke Aramaic with his disciples. And could you maybe explain a little bit about the Aramaic language and why certain songs are written in Aramaic? I know you touched on it just now, but if you could give a bit more of an elaborated answer, that would be very useful. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. First of all, we know that part of the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, Daniel book, has Aramaic. And as I mentioned, the Babylon Tractate, Jews that lived in Iraq spoke Aramaic, and they wrote and discussed in Aramaic, combined with some Hebrew. And that's why some of the laws were written in Aramaic. And this specific song is the duty to drink, right? So this is a quote. So it's an Aramaic quote. So it was taken from the Talmud, from the Babylon Tractate, and then we sing it. So there are some songs and even some prayers in synagogue, not too many, that are in Aramaic. Most of what we pray and study is in Hebrew, but there is Aramaic because it was just a language that Jews spoken, and it's very similar in many ways to Hebrew, like Semite languages, like we know in Arabic and other languages.
Thank you so much. And there's a question in the chat.
So Ken says, I got a question for Mordy. How many Jewish museums have you been around the world? And which Jewish museum you love to go the most beside the nation of Israel?
Well, I haven't been in too many Jewish museums. I probably feel like it wasn't that necessary for me since since I grew up, Israel is it's more than a museum. It's a living Judaism. Everything is Judaism. You don't need to go to a museum when you are immersed in Judaism. Obviously, it's always interesting to see how other countries had Jewish communities. Most of them were tragically vanished, and we know the history of the Jews across the ages. So many countries don't even have museums to visit, but for me, Israel would be, Jerusalem, the old city. That's where I find Judaism. Here in Singapore. Obviously, yes, I visited the museum. I'm also involved in the museum and in Jewish history in Singapore. Actually, the Jews that came here about 200 years ago came from Iraq. An amazing community. And I did do some research on the books from Iraq that they brought from with them. So they're Singaporean Jews, but I'm sorry, I cannot really recommend museums across the world. So I probably should visit more museums, and that's a good recommendation. Thank you.
Ken also says you could visit Manchester Jewish Museum. You went there last year. Maybe I would go too. I don't know. I need a trip to the Europe. So anyways, thank you all for joining us. I think our time
Sorry,
is...
I have one more question.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah. Hi,
No problem.
sorry. Hi, Mordy. So I'm a preschool teacher, and I'm getting my students to write cards of blessing for Purim to other local Jewish preschool students. I was wondering if you have any advice on what we should write on the cards. Thanks.
Yes, I think it's very beautiful. I think the best thing would be to connect personally. Maybe soon I think Karine will drop the emails, and I would love to maybe help with writing some blessings. I would love to help. I think it's a great idea. It's really, it warms my heart to hear this, and I would love to help out in any way. So maybe we'll do that later today.
I'm sorry to jump
Thank
in,
you.
Morty, but I have one last question before we end the night. I know that similar to Christianity and Judaism, there's such a wide scope. You have your incredibly Orthodox Jews all the way up to your very modern, I guess, more, you know what I mean, the Reformed Jewish community. But is Purim celebrated with such joy, like costumes and all this? Is this even the extremely Orthodox Jewish communities? Are they celebrating in this very colorful way as well, or not so much? Thank you.
Yeah, so that's a great question. The answer is yes, and I think that's one of the things that are so wonderful about Purim. It's just everybody celebrates this, and even if you go to the most extreme ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods in Mea Shearim, in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem, you will see everything is colorful. People are drinking, people are dancing. It's one day that the typical black and white change and become so colorful. Yes, but it's a great question, and the answer is yes.
May I ask one question also? Can you hear me?
Yes, of course.
Yes. So I don't know if this was mentioned earlier because I joined in not really on time. How big is the Jewish community here in Singapore? Did you say that?
I haven't mentioned. The numbers are probably between 2,000 to 3,000. That's the number. Now, there are Singaporean Jews, so we have maybe 400 or 500 Singaporean Jews. Now, we have
Out of
Jews
the
in Singapore.
3,000.
So there are two. No, so I mean, there's the Singaporean Jews, meaning Jews that were born here for many generations. And also in terms of their identity, they're very Singaporean. And they're here, their families are here for 200 years. And then there are Jews that live in Singapore. some for work, some stay
I
for
see,
10
I
or
see.
20 years, but they come from elsewhere. Like I'm now in Singapore, I'm counted as one of the Jews in Singapore, but I'm not a Singaporean Jew. So Jews in
Okay.
Singapore would probably have 2,000 to 2,500, but amongst them, only a few hundreds are Singaporean Jews. But we
Okay,
all
so
be together and know each other and in very good connection.
so you have a close community where you attend regular get together or some kind of activities.
Yes,
Like
yes.
what kind of activities do you have?
I'll answer briefly, and obviously, again, anyone who wants to, I can elaborate more personally later. I'll just say we have two main synagogues in Singapore, one in Oxley Rise, the other
Yeah.
one in Waterloo Street. The main one is in Waterloo Street. It has regularly every day 3 prayers a day, all of the
Wow.
holidays. Purim obviously is a big thing in Waterloo Street and in our synagogue. And yeah, there's a full, very vibrant Jewish life. Obviously, not all Jews attend all prayers and all events. Some come once a year for Atonement Day. Some come once a week for Shabbat. Some come every day. So it's, I think on a daily basis, you won't see more than 10 or 20 Jews gathering. But yeah, I hope I answered. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you everyone for your questions. And again, Purim Samech to all. Thank you for joining us once again. And whoever would like to stay in touch with Mordy or Jasmine for further discussion or any other questions, please email them at bgu.ac.il. And as for Jasmine, that would be joyandolives@gmail.com. Please expect an email of this video's recording and details from this Zoom call. My name is Karine. Thank you all.